The Argentinian peso in parallel foreign exchanges showed notable strength against the US dollar on Monday, a development that comes amidst a series of new economic measures introduced by President Javier Milei's administration. The government had announced plans to halt the expansion of the monetary base and a significant purchase from the central bank to cover bond interest payments. These measures are aimed at addressing the severe inflation that has plagued the country. Nicholas Morgan has more.
Argentina's triumph in the Copa America was more than just a victory on the pitch. It was a moment of collective joy that the nation desperately needed. But now the focus will move away from the elation from the stadiums as Argentina embarks on a new battle, reviving its economy from the clutches of staggering inflation. This journey towards economic recovery is being championed by President Javier Milei, whose government recently introduced measures aimed at stabilizing the Argentinian peso and combating inflation.
Argentina is at an inflection point. Inflection points in the history of the nation are not moments of peace and tranquility. They are moments of difficulty and conflict, when everything seems to be going uphill. They are moments when the abyss becomes so clear that the change becomes an obligation and an emergency.
Over the weekend, Argentina's economy minister announced a plan to halt the expansion of the monetary base, a move designed to curb the country's rampant inflation. The government also revealed a $1.5 billion purchase from the central bank to cover bond interest payments due in January, further signalling a commitment to fiscal responsibility. And on Monday, the parallel market peso appreciated against the US dollar, a small but significant sign of progress. As the peso strengthened, the gap between the black market blue exchange rate and the official rate narrowed slightly, an indicator that the new policies might be taking effect. The central bank's aggressive dollar acquisition strategy is pivotal for economic stability, ensuring Argentina can meet its international obligations and rebuild its foreign exchange reserves. With determination and strategic reforms, is it possible that Argentina is at the brink of a new era, aiming to transform national triumph on the football field into sustainable economic victory? Nicholas Morgan, TRT World.
Now let's bring in Latin America analyst Javier Farge in London. Great to have you with us, Javier. Now, how significant is the peso's recent appreciation?
Extremely significant because the government has intervened in the monetary market. At the beginning of Mr. Milei's administration, there was an aggressive purchase of dollars in order to have reserves to pay the debt. Now they are releasing those dollars in order to keep the price of the parallel dollar down, which, as your reporter correctly said, has gone down. The so-called the dollar blue, which is the parallel dollar that operates together with the official dollar. However, the problem is that the government, by releasing the dollars, have less money available to pay its own debt. And that could be a problem. The problem is not so much the short-term results of these measures, but the sustainability of these measures. How far can the bank go to be able to keep the peso up and the dollar down, and also the commitment of the government to release $1.5 billion to pay interest for the bonds, both bonds that Argentina has issued. Again, it will reduce the reserve that the central bank has, reserves that have been achieved due to cuts in government expenditure. So the problem is not so much the short-term results of these measures, but how sustainable they are in the long term. Inflation has gone down, it's true, but at the same time, retail prices has still gone up, which means that could affect inflation. The prices in supermarkets have gone down by 3 to 4% in the last few months, and that could actually affect the fight that the government has to reduce inflation in Argentina.
Right, and can you elaborate on President Milei's economic reforms and how they aim to further tame inflation?
Well, basically what he wants to do, at the beginning of this year, the government wanted to put pressure on retails and other sectors to reduce prices in order to keep inflation down. That worked relatively well, but prices depend very much on supply and demand, which means that this cannot be sustainable. At the same time, by releasing dollars in the market, the dollars that the government has in reserves, they will keep the price of the dollar down, and that will reduce inflation. The problem is that how much reserves does the central bank has to continue doing this? I mean, can they allow the market to sort itself out, or will the central bank need to keep on pumping dollars into the market to reduce the price of the peso? The more dollars they release, the less they will have in reserve to pay its own debt. And they will have to issue more bonds. But in order to more bonds, which are IOUs, they will have to pay interest at some point, which means that they will have to use their own reserve to pay those interests, like it was mentioned earlier in the report, that they have released $1.5 billion as a deposit in the New York Bank to pay those interests, which are due in January 2025. So it's the sustainability of these measures which will be the real measure of how much inflation will go down. It has gone down, but we don't know whether that's going to be sustainable in the near and in the near future.
All right, very interesting analysis, Javier Farhad there in London for us. Thank you very much for joining us.